You're viewing Newcap Television's Agriculture Year in Review. While PED ravaged baby pigs south of the border, that has not been the case in Canada. In fact, strong biosecurity protocols have kept porcine epidemic diarrhea in check. However, the virus likes cooler temperatures, so stakeholders are being encouraged not to drop the ball.
18 months after the first case was found in Ontario, we still have had no cases here.
At the height of the porcine epidemic diarrhea last year, the U.S. Pork Producers Council estimated it had killed some 7 million pigs, about 10% of that country's pigs. In Canada, while there were reports out east and a few cases showing up at border crossings in Manitoba, PED has been kept out of Western Canada.
Environmental surveillance in Manitoba and Saskatchewan has picked up a few positives here and there, showing that it does come in occasionally on trucks. But because everyone is doing such a good job with washing and cleaning trucks, and producers are really aware and they're making very sure that all trucks are clean that come to their barns, we've not had any cases here.
With cooler temperatures coming, biosecurity measures face greater challenges.
The virus does survive better in cooler temperatures, especially if it's frozen, and as you all know, it's much harder to clean things out in the cold.
Mud and manure freeze and stick onto boots, clothing and vehicles in the winter months, so this is the time for producers to bring their A game, especially if someone wanted to visit a pork farm.
You would be stopped at the gate, and if you would want to come into the barn, you'd have to verify that you had not visited another hog farm within the last 72 hours. You would don the rubber boots and overalls that we supply for you that we know have only been in our barns, and a basic hand sanitization before proceeding into the barn.
Scott Downey is a grain producer who also has cattle, sheep, goats, as well as 42 pigs and 39 piglets on his farm at Neilburg.
When we take our animals up to 4-H, which is the major time we show our animals, it's a full wash down of the trailers, make sure they're all clean, and then once they've been to the expo, they are put into a quarantine barn so that they do not bring anything back to the other part of the herd.
It's been good going so far at keeping the deadly virus out of Western Canada, but with Jack Frost bearing down, stakeholders are getting some encouragement to stay the course.
I think tremendous kudos have to go out to everybody within the pork industry and the transport industry for having cooperated so well over the last 2 years.
It's being touted as possibly the biggest trade deal in history. Canada is one of 12 countries that has signed on to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And while Western provinces could be in line to benefit, Eastern provinces are crying foul.
This is a very important deal. Of course, the crown jewel in this is Japan.
It's been 5 years in the making, and trade ministers see it as setting the rules for 21st century trade. From Chile to Japan, the Trans-Pacific Partnership TPP aims to create the world's largest free trade zone, accounting for 40% of global economic output.
There will be some industries that will adapt.
Canada would gain preferential access to Asia in countries like Japan, Malaysia and Vietnam for several products including beef, pork, grain, canola, wine and high-tech machinery.
I don't see this worth any less than, say, $2 to $3 billion of new money for Canadian agriculture.
Currently, 90% of Canada's dairy market is protected. TPP countries will get phased-in duty-free access. The US, Australia and New Zealand stand to benefit from increased access to Canada's supply-managed sectors. Several ag interest groups, including grain and cattle, are jubilant, but one group is waving a red flag.
For the first time, we see our national government, our federal government, to provide funds to compensate supply management farmers for a drop in the market and drop in revenue, and that in itself is new. We've never had that before, and it is worrisome.
The government proposes to support the dairy and poultry sectors with $4.3 billion. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is concerned about using taxpayers' dollars to compensate for the fallout of the trade deal, but RITS doesn't see it that way.
It's actually strategic transitionatory funding is the way I would classify it. There's no bailout. I mean, this is to stabilize the industry. This is an employer of over 300,000 people, $35 billion annual addition to our GDP. We want to make sure that they remain strong.
In the battle for its Lloydminster riding, where Ritz is incumbent, the other candidates are weighing in.
It is said that canola is going to benefit. The projections are a 15% increase in canola marketing. I cannot see that, 6-7% perhaps, but not 15%. The Conservatives are really big on negotiating deals, but they don't do very well at it. Our trade deficit is increasing. Just this last August, the trade deficit increased $2.5 billion, just in 1 month.
The people are going to need to really buckle down on this one, I think, because to a degree, some of them have been sold out. The auto industry is very upset. The milk producers and egg producers in Eastern Canada or Central Canada are very affected by this, and it's going to take a lot of innovation on the part of the farmers, on the part of the auto industry to make it work for them.
The TPP has a lot of issues that we don't know about yet, but in the past, the free trade agreement, NAFTA, I mean, we send our oil down to the States, it's refined down there, and it's sent back as expensive product to us to put in our vehicles. The deal was signed down in Georgia, and the devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal.
The Peterson Institute for International Economics estimates that Canada could benefit from upwards of $10 billion in revenue from the TPP by 2025. But there's a lot of work to be done to make that a reality as Canada moves forward.
We've made sure that our economy is going to remain strong. We are a trading nation. 1 in 5 jobs in Canada depend on trades.
And the new Liberal government of Justin Trudeau is yet to bring legislation to Parliament on whether or not it will be ratifying the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. Well, finally, Alberta ag producers are protesting about proposed legislation that they feel will hurt their way of life. The provincial government is admitting that there was miscommunication on the intent of Bill 6, but is rolling out workmen's compensation for paid farm and ranch workers starting January 1st.
There's more pluses to having workman's comp than there isn't, and people are getting a little confused about the costs of doing it.
Lynn Jacobson, president of the Alberta Federation of Labour, has tracked the conversation on workmen's compensation in the ag sector over the last 4 years. Given the heated debate in the province over Bill 6, he admits the consultation process has been weak, but argues the need for having compensation laws in place.
But if you carry a disability insurance on your farm, for the people that are working for you, I would say that probably costs more than workman's comp.
The government wants to pass Bill 6 with amendments by the end of the current session of the legislature. Area producers remain concerned about the effect it may have on their livelihood.
They're all from the city, and this is going to affect everybody. It's going to affect the people in the city too, because you think groceries are bad right now with meat prices. If this bill gets passed, they're going to go skyrocket again.
This, legislation at its base is to protect paid farm workers. It in no shape or form will affect 4-H activities in any way. It won't adversely affect the family farms.
The government intends to roll out labor and employment standard rules by April next year, but that is being seen as hasty.
That's going to be a very, very tight time frame to get some of that stuff into place. In fact, I would suggest that's too close. I think it has to be extended out.
OHS rules are to come over the next 13 months.
But if there's a tragedy on that farm, that someone with expertise can go on that farm site, do a thorough health and safety inspection.
The government is hosting several town hall meetings to meet with producers, even as the battle heats up at the legislature.
The government seems bound and determined to forge ahead with this against, obviously, the protestations, the loud protestations of a large number of people all across the province. And both from a public policy standpoint and from a political standpoint, this is just a bad way to proceed.
Gerard Lampow, Newcap News. Well, in the wake of protests, the government proposed amendments to that's Bill 6, to exempt family farms where there are no paid employees. Farms with at least one salaried worker will have to provide workers' compensation benefits and apply occupational health and safety rules. Since 2009, 112 people have died on farms in Alberta. So there you have it, a look back at 2015, the year in agriculture. If you've got a comment or story idea, well, we'd certainly love to hear from you. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You can send us your emails and send us mail to at Newcap Broadcasting, 5026 50th Street, Lloydminster, Alberta, T9V 1P3. Thanks so much for sharing this past hour with us. This has been the year in review, our review of all the big stories in agriculture for this past year, 2015. Best wishes again to you and your family, and best wishes for the new year.